Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Craig Campbell from Pastor Craig's Cards, and today we're looking at a 1962 Jim Brosnan, pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds, and quite an interesting fella here. His rookie card is a 1955 Bowman, and his last card is a 1963 Topps. And Jim was an interesting fella. He signed at the age of 17 with the Cubs to a minor league contract, and in 1955, I believe he came up with the Cubs for a little cup of coffee. Then he stuck with them finally in 1956, and then played the rest of his career in the major leagues. He did have a 2-year Army stint, and but he managed to stay stateside, which happened to a lot of players. And he was a pitcher for the Army team at the Meade Army Base in Washington, D.C. But Jim's an interesting fella. Here's the back of the card. You can see it's number 2 in the 1962 set. But Jim's got a real interesting story. He was called the Professor by his teammates, and he was known to be a very intellectual guy. He would often be sitting by his locker, puffing on a pipe. He read books during the games in the bullpen. Like I say, they called him Professor, and quite a good name for him. His best year was well. Actually, I should back up. He got traded from the Cubs to the Cardinals, and then from the Cardinals to the Reds. And so I did pull out some cards for some of the people that Jim did get to play with. Obviously, with the Cubs, he played with the great Ernie Banks. This is a beautiful 1959 card. Man, I just love that. One of my favorite Ernie Banks cards. And then, of course, with the Cardinals, he got to play with the great Stan Musial. Nice 1961 card. And then he finished his career with the Cincinnati Reds, where he was a teammate with Frank Robinson. Beautiful 1959 card. I like to try to pull out some of the Hall of Fame players, or players that are well known that played with some of these guys that we would never really think much about. You know, Jim was a common player. Somebody we'd have in our sets, and that's what I have here, obviously. But what's really interesting about Jim is he published. He was a writer. He was an author, and he published 2 books, and you can actually get them on Amazon. One was called The Long Season, and it was about the pennant race that they had with the Reds in 1960. Excuse me. Let me back that up. His first book was called The Long Season, and that was on the year 1959 to 1960. And then he wrote his second book in 1961 called The Pennant Race, which talks about the pennant race that the Reds were in all that year. And his book, The Long Season, is actually considered a pretty good book. It's ranked number 19 all time for sports books. So it's a really good book, and you can get it on Amazon. And I'm thinking about getting it. A lot of people compare it to Jim Bouton's book Ball 4, or even Jerry Kramer's book called Instant Replay. And so I'm actually going to try to get that book. And interestingly, in 1963, when the White Sox, they forbid him to write another book. And that was part of his contract for the 63 season. And Jim said no thanks. And he retired from baseball. And he went on to write a few more books covering all kinds of topics. He wrote for magazines and so on and so forth. But I'm really going to think about getting Jim's books, especially that pennant race. I would like to read that. I guess it's a really good book in The Long Season. It really shows an inside look at baseball players and what was going on, and the different personalities and so on. So Jim Brosnan, more than just a baseball player, and got to play with some of the all-time greats, and also got a few books published, which we can still buy today. And if I can, I'll try to provide a link to those in the video description if anybody's interested in reading some firsthand accounts on books, on really the happenings in the golden era of baseball, late 50s, early 60s. Anyways, guys, just wanted to share this with you. I hope you're enjoying some of these videos, and everybody enjoy the hobby and keep collecting.